Is your dog that dog? You know, the one who thinks walk means drag the human at full speed and turns every squirrel sighting into a high-stakes chase. And who believes the living room rug is the perfect place to practice their zoomy takeoffs. Or maybe your dog's your running buddy, the one who never turns down a jog but ends up limping and giving you the side eye like, I told you that was a bad idea. In this episode, we're talking about all dogs, whether your dog's more of a couch potato or an active dog who loves neighborhood jogs, backyard sprints, or intense adventure hikes. How can we keep our pups healthy and injury-free? What are the signs that they've overdone it? And how do we make sure they keep living their best zoomy lives for years to come? Let's find out together. Stay tuned. Hey there, everybody. I'm Amy Castro, and welcome to Muddy Paws and Hairballs, where we dig into the messy, hilarious, and realistic life with pets. Today, we're talking about keeping dogs active and preventing injuries for all dogs, from the casual strollers to the full-throttle Zoomers and everybody in between. And we want to keep them healthy, strong, and injury-free for a lifetime of adventures. And to help us figure out how to help our high-energy dogs especially move without wrecking their joints, we've got Dr. Kelly Fishman joining us today. Dr. Kelly is the founder of Strut Animal Mobility Specialist, and she's a veterinary sports medicine expert who helps dogs and cats stay mobile, recover from injuries, and thrive at every stage of their lives. She's a certified veterinary acupuncturist and canine rehabilitation therapist, and she is passionate about giving pet parents practical tools, which we love around here, to help their animals live longer, healthier, and more active lives. So welcome to the show, Dr. Kelly. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Amy.
Let's go ahead and start with some of the basics. So how do we know, based on who our dog is, what is the appropriate level of activity?
Yeah, so it definitely is kind of two things I'd think about. One, it would be age. So first of all, we all would know that a puppy needs different activity restrictions than an adult dog, than a senior. And what that means is if I have a lab and it's 4 months old, I want to be really conscious of those growing bones and those fragile joints, that I don't do things that jumps that are too high for my animal, or lots of activities like running really hard on concrete, which are really, hard on young growing bones. So, if I have a younger dog, there's certain guidelines that us rehab vets are taught about what are safe activities for puppies. And then usually adult dogs, if they don't have any underlying medical issue, and sometimes those medical issues that I think of, because I'm a veterinarian that's dealing with the body, I don't really think of like a kidney disease, right? I think of a Frenchie that is really predisposed to getting a disc herniation. And that's the stuff that I worry about. How can I prevent a disc herniation in a French bulldog? So things that I would tell someone who had a dog like that would be like, again, just like we don't want our puppies jumping, we probably don't want those dogs jumping also. So that's something that's, a bit obvious there. So, but if you, thinking besides the breed and the age, then we go into our seniors, and our senior dogs are more likely to have arthritis, neurologic conditions that are causing them to slow down and be a bit more fragile. And so those dogs, you also want to be a little bit conscious of and not overwork them in ways that kind of flare those issues up. So thinking about the breed of your dog, thinking about their age, and then thinking about what you can do to just prevent injury, and then also to do safe and fun activities as well.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the puppy thing, because although, as somebody that does rescue and has puppies come through our program and have raised puppies, I'm aware of that, but I think I'm often surprised that there is a certain mindset, or maybe a lack of knowledge or information, that says, oh, they're young, they can do whatever because they're young, and, not necessarily thinking about growth plates, things like that, that is really important. We were even seeing that right now. My daughter's got a little terrier mix, and when she overdoes it, you can tell it's like a hint of a limp, but it's because she's still young. So you do need to keep an eye on that. When it comes to the breeds, we don't do a lot of DNA testing, but I had mentioned to you before we started recording that my dog is 2/3 English Bulldog, 1/3 American Bulldog. And so, she has a lot of those especially the English Bulldog characteristics. And she's already had an ACL reconstruction, and I'm constantly telling her, stop running because I don't want that knee to, and the other, and she's got loose hips and things like that sort of come with the breed, but I think also poor breeding, because she was intentionally bred to be what she is. It wasn't like an oopsie thing, unfortunately. So is DNA testing, like if somebody has a dog and they don't know what it is, does it matter the breed? Like, should they find out? Because then they can watch out for certain potential sources of injury.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest that. And part of it is we are now learning that some of those common orthopedic conditions are genetic. So thinking about our French Bulldogs, we know that those compressed discs, that interverticular disc disease or IVDD that they suffer from, that Dachshunds suffer from, that pugs have, that sometimes bulldogs have as well. Mm-hmm. Those are genetic conditions that, nowadays people can take a cheek swab and send it off, to some of these DNA testing systems, and not only finding so much what breed your dog is, but what kind of conditions they are genetically predisposed to. Mm-hmm. And another interesting thing that just came to light in the veterinary area that most vets and maybe most people don't know are that those ACL tears or that cruciate ligament tear, that's actually genetic. So Labradors, for example, are genetically predisposed to get those cranial cruciate or ACL or CCL tears that we all dread, and your dog has. So
it's a very expensive process to fix it too.
Oh gosh, it's so expensive, and it's not even that it's so expensive just to have the surgery, but if your dog was a person, they'd be going to rehabilitation for months after to strengthen right away. And then I'm a rehab vet, and I sometimes tell people, I said, the surgery is expensive, but rehab is going to be twice as much. And not everybody has access to rehab. And that's something that, why I'm here to talk to people, because I want pet parents to know that even if you're, unable to pursue formal rehab programs for injuries, there is stuff you could do. But sorry, a tangent there. But yes, of course, there are genetic things that these breeds have. And right now we don't really have a test for, a cruciate ligament injury predisposition like you would with a French Bulldog and those compressed back issues. But I'm sure very soon we will. I'm planning to adopt a little black lab puppy in 2 years. And I'm sure then I hope that that's an opportunity for me to know. And knowledge is power. I'll still take my little black lab puppy because that's my breed that I love. And that's the dog that I want. But, I'll have to understand that I'm going to have to do certain things to try to prevent the injury that they are just predisposed to.
Yeah. Like you said, the knowledge is definitely the power. I know we had a little dog one time, and it was a mix of a whole bunch of things, and that was pre-DNA testing. But I remember specifically the vet talking about the fact that because the dog had such a long back, watch the jump, because of course he was always bing, 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 bing. And it's like, stop doing that. I feel like I'm always telling people, stop doing that, stop doing that.
I know. But it is also redirecting to safe things. So it's like, I did a consultation yesterday on a nearly 2-year-old golden doodle and was roughhousing with other dogs, and another dog jumped on it. And then since then has just not been right in the back end. And we took all the x-rays. We are trying to figure out what's wrong. And I said, well, one of the things you could do is that when in the house, what they were doing is they were throwing their food for their dogs. So it was slipping and sliding in the home on their wood floors and splaying out the back legs and going around these hard little turns because it was a fun way to interact with their dog. And I was like, gosh, that's just asking for trouble. And your dog turns out has an iliopsoas injury, and doing those kinds of activities is something that could really flare it up. So let's do other things instead. Like, let's go on long hikes. Like, that's a nice, safe activity, keeping things in straight lines, keeping your dog on a tight leash on soft surfaces. So avoiding those concrete and staying on grass and dirt, so it's not about necessarily not doing anything. It's just knowing what's safe and what's not. And, and then one thing about jumping that I'd like to bring up, just because it's something that most people are not aware of. And again, general practice vets don't have this little cheat that I can just tell everybody. But what it is what is too high to jump. And what someone has to do is they just can take a tape measure, and they can measure as their dog is standing from the paw as they're standing on the floor to the elbow, which if you don't know what the elbow is, because sometimes people think elbow is the knee. So just Google it. Where's a dog's elbow, right? Take a picture.
We can put a picture up on the video.
Yes, it's kind of where our elbow is, but sometimes they think it's in the back of the body. But regardless, take a tape measure and measure from the height of the floor to your dog's elbow. Anything above that, you're kind of in an injury risk zone. So then if you go to your couch and you're like, gosh, my dog's elbow is 10 inches, but my couch is, 16 inches, I probably should try to give him a little bit of a step to go down to that's a little bit safer than jumping on and off that. And because we know with injuries, a lot of times that our dogs that are not athletes, right, are these micro injuries, meaning that every day they're jumping out of this giant SUV onto concrete to get to the dog park over and over and over. And then the tendons of your shoulder and your spine is absorbing all those micro injuries. And then by the time your dog's 10, all of a sudden they're, blowing their rotator cuff or have spinal injury. And you're like, gosh, like my dog was never a dog athlete. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, and that kind of ties in well to my next question about, what are some of the common mistakes that we make in, exercising our dogs and getting out there. So, I mean, you've already told us a couple of things, thinking about the surface that they're on and, and that more natural, like I remember when I had my ACL done, it was like, closed chain versus open chain, it's more natural movements that the doctor wanted me doing. And so when you think about a dog, like you said, hiking and their, legs are going in the right direction that they normally would go in and the way the knees are supposed to bend, not flipping hips out 80 degrees further than they're supposed to be and sliding and things like that. That's such great advice as far as the jumping issue, because I had never, I've always thought about my little Chihuahua, and I don't like it when she jumps off the chair because she's got these little spindly legs. But no, you never even really thought that there was a good way to know how high is too high. So thank you for sharing that. What other mistakes do you see people making that kind of end them up coming to you and needing, either surgery or rehab or both?
So one of the biggest ones is the dog chuck it or frisbee. So I was at a dog event and they had someone who was doing a dog, sport or spectacle, really, or I don't want to even call it a spectacle because it was just a demonstration. And what they had done, they had a great relationship with their dog where they were throwing the frisbee and it was jumping off their back and catching the frisbee midair. And then also midair was turning around and then landing hard. So movements like that, where they're jumping and twisting and turning to get a ball or a frisbee, those are things that can really put them at risk. And some of the times that I've had people come to me where all of a sudden their dog was playing chuck it ball, jumped up, landed hard, and then suddenly had a spinal cord injury and couldn't walk and had to be rushed to the vet hospital and have an emergency spinal surgery. Those types of injuries are, caused by that type of impact to the spine. And ball play's fun. Like dogs like balls. Like that's and they love to have that. So what could we do safer? Well, why don't we just try to prevent some of the twisting and the jumping? So let's keep things in a straight line. Let's do it in a grass, field with nice, footing that they could dig their paws into. We're not in anywhere where there's lots of big potholes or sticks or other dogs to jump on them. So that's how I would say to do it safely.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you had mentioned, getting in and out of the vehicle for the dog parks, but that's another thing. I mean, I'm not a dog park person for a lot of reasons, but
yes, I know.
some of the, when you get dogs, even just sometimes I feel like I live in a dog park running an animal rescue, but we've got, 4 dogs that get outside and it's a nice day. And you've got, like I said, down from my tiny little spindly legged Chihuahua, who's pretty much smart enough to stay away from everybody. But then all the other knuckleheads, including my knucklehead who's already had her ACL repaired, they're running, they're spinning, they're zooming around the pool, they're making that, making these tight turns. So sometimes just monitoring how that play is happening and maybe taking a little more control over that instead of just sitting in my chair and watching it happen, because it's kind of funny to see a bulldog zipping around in circles with the terrier, but not good for the knee, I'm quite sure.
Yeah. And then there's also one other thing, and I don't want to get too deep into it because people can certainly Google it or, look on my Instagram for examples, but doing a warm up and a cool down before vigorous activity. And, people who have agility dogs, hunting dogs, working dogs, dog athletes, they all know this. And this isn't something that maybe the general pet owner would know, but there are things you should do for 90 seconds that you could do of a warm up for a dog. And then a cool down is really important. And what a cool down would mean would be I'm going to slowly walk my dog after they've done this vigorous activity before I put them in my truck hot to go home. So I'm going to do a 1 minute walk. I'm going to also, during that time, start to look for a little bit of lameness. I'm going to see, are they a bit gimpy in their back legs? Or is their tail lower and it's never low, but now it is? Is their head kind of hanging down? Watch for subtle signs of lameness and just changes in body posture as they're walking after you've done some of that activity. And then also it's a great time to just do a little bit of like what I call dog yoga, which is when you could put them up on the curb and do a little bit of a spine stretch. And as you're doing that, check their paws, look at their paws, check for injuries that they could have sustained. So that's a great time during that cool down phase to not only cool them down, to hopefully prevent injury, which is really, that's why you want to do it, is to prevent injury. Also to spot injury is when it would be a great time to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great time to kind of give them the once over, and especially for us that are in hotter climates, you're always looking for, in addition to cuts and things like that on the pad, but being very cautious about hot pavement and hopefully preventing, but also looking for those types of injuries as well. You mentioned a couple of the signs of overdoing it. Let's say we don't necessarily notice anything today, but like Gigi, I mentioned, like I'll see her walking down the hallway and it's just not a normal gait. There's a little bit of we say a little bit of hitch in her giddy up. And, when we see things like that, a limp or the changes that you mentioned, should that be like an immediate run to the vet? Is it one of those things that you watch it and kind of see how it goes? Should you give them something? Like if I had a hitch in my giddy up, we pop a pill and we go on about our business, right? We don't necessarily run to the doctor because my knee's a little sore from working out yesterday kind of thing. What should we do when we see these things? So most injuries are musculoskeletal. When you see that limping, they're not going to be like a bone issue typically if it's a young and healthy dog. So if your dog has arthritis, they've previously had an ACL tear or cruciate tear. So I'm not talking about those dogs because as the owner, you're already aware. So this would be a young healthy dog and you see this. That's mostly going to be an injury related to like a muscle or a tendon. Right? And so I think it's really important to take those dogs right away to the veterinarian, because as those injuries get more chronic, meaning as you've given it a week or two, the dog's getting better because that's a soft tissue injury that's healing. But then by the time you take it to the vet, your dog's at the vet, its adrenaline's going, it's feeling good. The vet comes over for 5 minutes, especially a general practitioner. They don't have tons of time. Like I do as a rehab vet, I'm there for 45 minutes feeling every single bone and joint in your dog's body and muscle. They don't have a lot of time, those GP vets. So detecting that injury 2 weeks later, the dog's feeling good at the vet hospital in 5 minutes is going to be really, really tough. So I don't think necessarily going to the emergency room is where I would go for sudden, issues with limping and lameness, but I would get in with your regular veterinarian pretty soon when they could still to be able to detect the injury and feel it. So I'm all about getting there early, and then just knowing that lameness and limping is not normal and is a sign of pain. So, because that's, I think, something that people sometimes, they're like, well, he's really great, but he runs after his ball. Like, he's the happiest dog. He goes on his walk. But as we go home, he's hitching the gate every step. Unfortunately, that's a problem. And maybe it's something that we can fix, and we can definitely help those dogs. Yeah. Are there other things we could be doing to prevent some of the injuries that you see? Like, I know we'll get bags and bags of donated items at the rescue, and every once in a while there's like a doggy knee brace. I got one the other day in a bag. It was like the tiniest little knee brace. I'm thinking, who can I put this on? Who needs a brace?
Yeah.
Is wrapping or bracing or doing any of that stuff or feeding them something different? What can we do to help prevent some of these injuries from happening?
Yeah. So in regard to wrapping and bracing, I wouldn't suggest that. And the reason is that because dogs come in so many shapes and sizes, getting a brace that's actually fit for your dog's body, you have to have them custom made to be effective. And custom made means that they've taken a mold, a cast of your dog's knee, and they've recreated specifically for their knee a brace. So if it's not something like that, it's not going to do much to stabilize. Okay. So it's not worth it. But what I would say you should do is you should supplement. And you should do supplements that are smart and things that actually help to, stop with some of the breakdown in the body. So I have top two for that one. Okay. So one is actually collagen. So they did a study of dogs that would run, I don't know what the distance was off the top of my head, but it was, I think was a mile intensely. At the end, they had these dogs, they were young and healthy, and they were running, and they actually sampled their blood after, and they found that they basically produced at the end of the run all these biomarkers of things that break down the collagen in their knee. So a normal healthy dog, just with that kind of sudden physical activity, will start to break down their joints. And one of the things that they did in the study is that then they gave half those dogs collagen. And the dogs that were supplemented with collagen actually had less of those biomarkers of inflammation of the cartilage in their blood. So that would be something that I would say, like, I suggest not necessarily joint preventatives like glucosamine and chondroitin, because I think the evidence for those types of supplements are less so, but there is evidence for things like collagen being protective to the joints. So that's something that I would like put my young healthy dog on. And then the other thing is a supplement from fertilized egg yolks, and it's called Fortitropin. And what this fertilized egg yolk supplement does is it helps to stop the breakdown of muscle associated with injury. So when your dog was injured and he hurt his ACL, his body started to produce something that would break down the muscle. And, you've had issues with your own body, and I've had, issues with my own body as well. I know when I have an injury, you're weaker and you're weaker because your body is trying to heal itself, but in trying to heal itself, it starts to break down that muscle. So this ingredient Fortitropin, which my top dog supplement is called Myos Pet. So it's MYOSPET. That supplement, which again, that's a fertilized egg yolk, prevents that breakdown of muscle, which is great because you don't ever think of the muscle. It's all about joint supplements.
Yeah.
So, and all about the joints. I go to the pet food aisle and there's a million joint supplements and not one thing dedicated to muscle. And we know that if it's not going to be a joint injury, it's going to be a muscle injury.
Yeah.
So that's what I do with my young, healthy, active dogs. I get them on Myos Pet. I get them on a good quality collagen that has 3 types of collagen if you could find it, because then that's also good for the skin. So that's what I would suggest, doing things like that. I think of it as prevention. I mean, the studies in that Myos Pet have mostly been with injured dogs and senior dogs, and there's lots of science behind it. But, I give it to my young, healthy dogs as well, just as a preventative.
Yeah. And you're talking like across the board. Like if I've got a young dog, let's just start doing that. Obviously, unless there's some contraindication that we've talked to our vet about.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And I think because it's like, why not? And it's one of those things where I had that dog with an Iliopsoas strain, and they're like, gosh, like, how do I prevent this from happening again? I was like, well, your dog has a muscle problem, so you need to be on a muscle supplement that makes sure that they're strong, and then you have to do exercises, which is a whole nother part of it that we can kind of dive into if you want to dive into dog exercise, which is like my favorite, most fun thing on the planet to do with your dogs and to teach people and to bond with them. But yeah, so I do it as a preventative. You would definitely do it if your dog was a senior and had an injury. That's a no-brainer because the science is behind it. But I like it as a preventative as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the older guys or the guys, that have had an injury. I mean, I think there are some people who would say, okay, my dog is now getting older, so I'm not going to worry about exercise anymore or activity anymore. As long as they can go out and go to the bathroom by themselves. Is it good to continue the activity? And is it basically the same signs that I'm looking for, that I've overdone it? Or, how do we keep those guys moving so that they have good quality of life up to the end?
Yeah, so this is actually the reason I got into veterinary rehab was because I learned that the number one reason, aside from having cancer, for euthanasia in older dogs was basically being frail. Everything inside them is healthy and they feel good and they could look at you and be like, Mom, I want to go play, but my body is breaking down. And when I found out that there's an area of vet med called, physical rehabilitation, which is like the dog body shop, and I could, fix that and increase their mobility and have them moving and have them healthy, I had to be part of it. So there are so many things that you could do for those older dogs. And one of the things that you should do is to never stop moving. Take them on walks. And if they're slowing down in their walks, try to do shorter walks a couple times a day.
I've heard people like, I get this far down the road and then I'm picking the dog up and having to carry him home. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have gone so far down the road. Like maybe go around the block or go up and down your own street instead of going so far.
Amy, that is the advice that I give people all the time. If that's, if your dog is only getting like 4 houses down the block, do 1 house or 2 houses down the block and then come back. And then next, do that for 2 weeks and then challenge them a little bit and go 2.5 houses, and then just kind of slowly try to increase their endurance. But, when dogs have those problems, especially our senior dogs, that's not a problem with the cardiovascular system. Like a lot of people think it is, like their heart and lungs are failing. That's a problem of strength. And it's a problem of not having muscle strength, because as a senior dog, there's certain biological things that happen to senior dogs that make it hard for them to build and maintain muscle. And so if you don't have muscle to power yourself on that walk, you just don't go as far. That's why we say keep them moving, because then if you keep moving, you keep building that muscle.
Well, and it's the same for us. I mean, everything that you just said, all this fantastic advice, if you take out the word dog and put people or put your own name in there, all of that is good advice. Do what you can, keep moving. The inability to move and the lack of activity. I was watching a video the other day that was talking about a certain group of doctors was referring to recliners as your pre-coffin, because you get older and you settle into that recliner and you think you can't do it. So therefore you don't do it. And, you lose your ability to do it. And so, this is, whether you're a younger person or, but I think especially with older people that might have older pets, like this is going to be good for you too. Getting your butt out there and walk, start with 2 houses, then 4 houses and make it a challenge to have both of you live more active and healthier lifestyle.
And exactly. And it's one of those things too, where, if I'm a senior citizen, like I'm aware that I'm slowing down and I'm getting slower. So I'm going to do things like do water aerobics, like continue to exercise, try to eat in healthy ways that build muscle. And I could even go to, the human, the market, and I could see all the different things and, areas of supplements that I can do to build muscle. And dogs, like I said, don't have that. So knowing that there are things like that, when I was talking about that Mayo's pet supplement, that's actually the study that they did, which was groundbreaking to show the benefits of their product. They studied it in senior dogs, and they actually showed that the senior dogs were less frail. And so, it's like they're losing muscle. Let's get them on a nice supplement to help maintain that muscle and keep them moving. Do exercises, do your stretches. Like there's a lot that you could do. And the one thing I want people to know is that please don't think that there's something we can offer your dog, because if there's something that we have to do, that you have to say goodbye for that reason. Like there are things.
Yeah, and investigate that. I mean, there's nothing sadder than seeing your pet, whether it's your dog or, we've been talking about dogs, but cats too, to see them get to that point where they're slowing down and they're just, not themselves, and you start really questioning their quality of life. And if there's something we can do to prolong that, obviously everybody's body's going to, wear out and give out at some point. But if we can prolong that and give them the best quality of life by doing the things that you've talked about and by giving, that's, to me, that's brilliant. Addressing the joint issues and the muscle issues, because those two are obviously pivotal in keeping us all moving. If we could be doing those things and have that better quality of life, it's something that we should all be doing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any final thoughts or advice that you would want to share with people? You've shared a ton of great advice so far, but something that we want to leave them with to ponder as they move forward from this episode.
Well, first of all, cats. I am a cat lover, so maybe I'll just do a little quick cat plug, because that's something that, so I am a huge cat person, and I have a senior kitty, and I noticed that my senior cat started to do this thing where she wouldn't jump straight up onto the bed. So what she would do is I had a little side table. So she would jump from the floor to the side table and then to the bed. And she had stopped playing and she was sleeping a lot. And it was like, well, she's 18, she has kidney disease, and maybe that's like she's getting kind of older. And then, I didn't dumb veterinarian like doesn't even realize that their own animal is like suffering from severe arthritis. And I finally did a good exam on her, and I was like, goodness, like she hurts. Like this is why she's doing that. And just really understanding that pain in animals isn't always going to be obvious. It is going to be subtle changes in their regular behavior. So a lot of the times, by the time they're limping and they're lame, it's already kind of, the injury's been around for a long time and they're already been suffering. So starting to pay attention, if anyone could know, to those little subtle changes in their normal behavior, meaning like they were going on 1 mile walk, were, really feeling good, tail was wagging the whole time, running to get back home. And then all of a sudden they don't want to go on their walk anymore. On the way home, they keep stopping and wanting to sit, or they keep smelling, the flowers and checking where their dogs went to the bathroom. And they're kind of like behind me on the leash. That's a sign of a problem. My cat not wanting to jump as high as she used to, that was a sign of a problem. And so I didn't have to, wait until she was actually limping to know and bring her in. Like that's those little subtle changes in behavior. We as veterinarians are now recognizing are signs of pain and decreased mobility and strength that we should be aware of. So recognizing that stuff and trusting your intuition, I have people come into my exam room and be like, there's something wrong with my dog. I don't know what it is, but there's something off. And he's not obviously limping. He's not yelping. He wants to still play ball. He still wants to go to the dog park. But at the end of the, every once in a while, there's something just off with his gait. Yeah. And lo and behold, there is something, and we figure it out. But just as long as people can know that, take that intuition that there's something a little bit off, like trust yourself.
Yeah. That's such a good point, because I think sometimes we get really, really busy and we don't necessarily notice those things until they get really bad. And like you said, our animals they obviously can't tell us, and, they're usually pretty stoic and in kind of hiding things. But, it's interesting you mentioned the cat not wanting to jump up, because I have an older cat named Pickles, and then I've got the middle-aged cat. He's had multiple names. We call him Penny Pinhead because his head is just too small for his body, in my opinion. And he's always been like that. But yeah. I have this video that was kind of funny because we have baby gates everywhere to keep dogs controlled here at the rescue. And so he's sitting there, he's looking at the baby gate, he's looking at the top of it, and Pickles, who's, 6 or 7 years older than he is, walks up, sits down next to him, looks at him, and then just goes bing and just hops over it. And he kind of gets a hold of it, and then he kind of pulls himself and scrambles. So it's like, there's definitely, and we did take him in and got it all checked out and everything. But it was like, it was funny at first, but then when I started thinking about that video, it's like, there's no reason why she, who is so much older than him, can just go from a sit up over that gate. It's not that high. And then he's, having to think about it and then drag himself over it. And it wasn't an obvious thing. It wasn't like, if I manipulated his leg, it hurt, or that he was, limping. But, he definitely has signs of arthritis that she does not have. And it doesn't have to be a super old animal, but noticing that change in behavior, that's huge. Huge.
And then for your cat, just one last thing. I would put them, Mayo's Pet does have a feline formula that I put my kitty on. So, and loves it, thinks it's like the most delicious. Like when I put it on top of his wet food, like cats are crazy for it. But so I would also start that because, cats get arthritis just like dogs do. And people are not aware because they're not going to be limping like a dog. They're going to be doing exactly what your kitty did. And starting them on pain meds, and then, doing other things to support their, joints and their muscles. There are the same options for dogs. There are for kitties too.
Good to know. We don't want to. So we talk a lot about cats on this show because.
Well,
no, I'm glad you brought them up at the end because I felt sort of bad. It's like we're talking only about dogs, and we usually talk about cats because our rescue, it's probably 90% cats. Not to dog ratio, just for logistics more than anything else. We didn't intend to be a cat rescue, but that's kind of the way it turned out. Well, wow. I know what I'm going to be buying as soon as I get off of this recording with you. I mean, it's such a simple thing and so easy to take care of. Dr. Kelly, I really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your experience and your expertise. And before I kind of close it out, is there anything else that you want to share? Any other story that you want to tell? Maybe a happy ending story of somebody that really stands out in your mind that you've helped?
So I'll share the story of one of the first dogs that I worked on, which was a handsome black lab named Stanford. And he was a great dog. He was playing with his dad and was playing ball, and was one of those dogs that jumped up and immediately fell in the wrong way and was completely paralyzed in all four legs because of a spinal cord rupture in his neck. And his dad was a great pet parent and raced him straight to a veterinary neurologist and had spinal surgery. And when I met him, he came to the rehab department and the poor guy couldn't even stand. You know, he was just flopped out. And they looked at me and they said, can our dog walk again? And I said, I think so. We're going to try. You know, you fixed the spine and now we have to build up strength, and it's going to probably take a couple months, but we're going to do it. And slowly over time, just walking that dog to the first time it could stand again, and just the happiness that that family had. And then the first time that they walked again was amazing. And then all of a sudden they are not only walking and jumping, but able to play ball again and get back to like their happy times to live the rest of their life. You know, that's something that as a rehab vet, like that joy is something that I get to have gotten to experience a couple different times in dogs. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's got to be so rewarding to see that, because it's a lot of hard work on your part and the animal's part and the pet owner's part, but the outcome is obviously well worth it.
Absolutely. And certainly it's something that, you know, our dogs and cats give us so much. And, you know, I was just snuggling with my kitty before this, and they just give us so much love. And if we can just, you know, provide for them and give them the best quality in life and never have a bad day, like, then gosh, we've done our job. So
there you go. That's a great way to wrap up our episode. Well, Dr. Kelly, again, thank you so much for being with us today. I think it was super eye-opening for me. Like I said, I know I'm going to go shopping as soon as I get off of this recording. And if listeners want to know more about you and your work, or, you know, if they maybe they live in the area and they can come see you if their animal needs treatment, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
The name of my little rehab practice is called Strut Animal, and on my Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, Strut Animal, you could find all the videos, mostly of dogs, because I don't, all my cat patients, it's hard to convince the kitties to do the exercises.
They're not cooperating.
So, they're, you know, they have 10 minutes. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's a rare cat to get them to be able to do lots of exercises, but they sure do love acupuncture and massage and other things like that. And heating pad therapy.
Oh yeah, I bet they do.
But my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Strut Animal. If they're interested in learning more about that Myos Pet product, they can visit the website, myospet.com. It's available for purchase on Amazon and directly from the website. And so those would be the ways that they can find me, find that supplement if they're interested. And yeah, I'm in the Kennett Square, Pennsylvania area, just outside of Philadelphia. So if anyone has any dog rehab needs, please call me.
I will, because I'm probably going to be moving to northern Delaware.
Yeah, I have about, most of my patients are in northern Delaware and as well. Beautiful area.
I know. I'm looking forward to my house hunting. But yeah, that would be great. Okay, for everybody that's listening, take these preventative steps that Dr. Kelly has shared with us. Do the right thing when it comes to getting your dog activity. Be safe and do everything that you can, like she said, so that everybody is living the best quality life together and your dog lives long and happy, and your cat, and active. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening to Muddy Paws and Hairballs. Be sure to visit our website at muddypawsandhairballs.com for more resources, and be sure to follow this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss a show. And hey, if you like this show, text someone right now and say, I've got a podcast recommendation. You need to check the show out, and tell them to listen and let you know what they think. Don't forget to tune in next week and every week for a brand new episode. And if you don't do anything else this week, give your pets a big hug from us.